Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Karen Shannon, and today I'll be presenting Epicor 10 BAQ formulas. First, I have a short presentation. It only includes 5 slides that will kind of be an overview of what we will be showing in the Epicor 10 demo regarding BAQ formulas. So we're going to go through creating a business activity query, although most of you may know already how to do that. Some of you may not, and we're just going to go through the basics to get us set up to be able to enter calculated formulas. Then we're going to talk about working with calculated fields, and we're going to go through some sample formulas for calculated fields, and then we're going to have the actual demos in Epicor 10. So the basic steps to create a business activity query: you're going to add tables that include the fields you need in your query. You're going to verify the joins for your tables. You're going to include any selection criteria to filter your data if you want your data filtered. And you're going to include fields that you want to display in your query. And then finally, we're going to add calculated fields, and that will be the bulk of this presentation. When we talk about working with calculated fields, we're going to see that when we get into Epicor 10 and the BAQ menu item, that when we try to display fields, then there will be a calculator icon below the arrows used to select the fields you want to display. Also, when we get into the calculated field editor, you'll see there's an area to add a field name for your calculated field, the data type, the format, a label, and a description. There's also different areas in the calculated field window that we'll see, including a tree view, a detail view, and a list view. There is a box that includes the fields for you to be able to select your fields to use in your calculated expression formula, and there's a box that includes functions that lists the common functions you can use to work with in your calculated fields. The area to actually list your formula will be in the editor box. And then there's another box that includes often used operators, just to have them there and handy for access to use in your formulas. And there is a button to check your syntax. Once you have created your formula, you want to make sure that your syntax is correct before you save it and try to run your query. Some of the sample formulas that we'll go through in the demo to use for calculated fields. The first one will be a total cost for an invoice line. We'll also use the round function. We're going to demonstrate using date functions. We'll also see an example of if then else, or using the case/lookup function. One formula will work with the year, month, and date and concatenate strings together. We're going to demo subtracting days and adding days. A formula for using the price per unit basis. We're also going to just show a basic formula for displaying the current time, displaying the current date, and a formula to trim your text to a static size. And then the last item is getting the position of a value from an array. Basically, that's the end of the presentation portion of this recording, but we now will move on to the demo portion in Epicor 10. So here I've opened Epicor 10, and this is the new look with Windows 8 style, and you can also view it in the classic style, but we're using the new style today. And here is a list of the recent forums we've been in, including the business activity query form. So that's the form I want to open. And at the bottom here you can see that it's loading. And once it gets loaded, then we'll start actually creating a BAQ. So you can name your query whatever you'd like to name it. I'm going to name it Demo Calculations. And you can make it shared if you'd like, and choose whatever options you'd like to here. Once you click save, your actual query is saved, but your query doesn't really do anything until you go and build the query. So you're going to go to the Query Builder tab and choose the tables that you'd like to include in your query. So to make it easier to find your tables, you can start typing in this box up here. I want to get the invoice detail and the invoice header table. So I can select the invoice detail table by highlighting it and dragging it into the design area. Or if I wanted to select the invoice head table or any other table for that matter, you can either drag it or you can double click on the table and it will then automatically go to the design area. So we said in our presentation that after we create our tables we want to verify the joins. So that means looking down here at the bottom half where it says table relations, and we verify that these fields that are linked are the key fields that we want to link. So invoice detail has company and invoice number linked to be equal to the invoice header, company and invoice number. And so those links look correct. If they were not correct, or if you wanted to change the links, you can do so. And then the table criteria is where you can add items, fields, and conditions to filter your table down. But for our demo, we're not going to use any filters. We're just going to use the tables as they are and display the fields that we want to display. So next we go to the tab labeled Display Fields, and you can see our two tables are listed in the tree view here. There is an A to Z sorter, so that if you open the table right now, you can see they are in the order just that they are in the table. But if you choose the A to Z sort and you reopen, now you can see they're alphabetically sorted. Our first formula that we talked about is the total line cost. And my suggestion is that to work with your calculated fields, you also display the fields that you're going to use in the calculation so that you can verify your calculation is correct as you expect it. So first we're going to display the 6 fields that are used in the calculation, and then we will create the full calculation itself. So I need to get the labor unit cost, and just by typing L, it pulled me down to the L area, and that is the first L starting field name, labor unit cost. And I want to get the burden unit cost, so that brought me close, and I found burden unit cost to bring it over, and material burden unit cost and material unit cost are needed, and then subunit cost. And we also need the selling ship quantity. So we're going to add together the first 5 fields and then multiply it by the selling ship quantity to get our total line cost. So we mentioned in the presentation that the calculator icon is what we use to make calculated fields, and it's located below these selection arrows for your display fields. So if you click on the calculated field editor, the icon here will open up the calculated field editor. And we talked about the different areas, and now we're going to kind of demo those areas. First, I'll type in the field name, which we can call it anything we want to. I suggest not putting spaces in the actual field name, but you could in the label or description if you want. But sometimes it's just easier to copy and paste. Then you tell it which type of field you're going to have. In this case, it's going to be a decimal. And so now we'll talk about the different areas in the calculated field editor. On the left side here is a tree view, and once we have more than just the one calculated field listed here, you'll see there will be additional fields down in the tree. There's also the detail view, which is this half that we're looking at, and there's a list view where you could view, if you had more than one, you would view them all in the list view this way. There is the fields box that I mentioned in the presentation, and that has different sections, including the display fields. So that will show the fields that we chose to display already. So you have those more readily accessible than trying to find them again, because here you do have the available tables. So you have the invoice detail table, and again, if you want to sort alphabetically, you can do that here, and if you reopen it, you'll see they're sorted alphabetically. On the far right here, we have the functions box, and that includes 3 basic sections: the functions, operators, and BAQ constants. Most of the functions are probably pretty familiar to anybody who works with any formulas. You know, we have the aggregate functions, the count, min, max, sum. There's mathematical functions, and you know, I'm not going to go through each of them. You guys can each review on your own, but we will hit some of these as we go through the demo of the formulas also. The operators has additional sub areas, including the condition, which then has the if, then, else, and case. And then the BAQ constants are constant items that are available for working in your BAQ, and you might recognize those as they were options also when you select your criteria to filter your BAQ by certain things. This main white area is where you will either type or drag and drop or double click to get your formulas in as your calculation. And this lower area has all the common operators that you might use just to be easier accessible, more easily accessible. And then there is the check syntax button here, which you should always check after you create your formula to make sure you didn't make any typing mistakes, for example, or an error in your logic, etc. So now it's time to get started on our first formula. We had the total line cost as the name of our formula, and as we mentioned, it was going to be the fields that we chose to display. We'll use the first 5 to add together, we're going to put parentheses around those 5 because we want them added first, and then we're going to multiply that added value to the selling ship quantity. And so we think our formula is correct, so we're going to click check syntax, and we'll get a message saying syntax is okay. If it was not correct, then we would get a message saying whatever the error is. So you can see just by double clicking it, it puts your displayed items in the position where your cursor last was. And so we can go ahead and save this in the calculated field. And since this is a separate window, what we're going to do is close this window and go back to the main window, and we're going to analyze our query and then test our query, and we'll see results. And so right now, it doesn't look like our results are correct, but that's just because we're in our training database and there's not as much data. But if we sort by total line cost and go up to the top, we can see there are some results. So, we can verify by adding the first 5 fields and then multiplying by the quantity, and we should get the end result. So yay, our first formula worked. Now we're going to go back and create a second formula. So to do that, we go to the same calculator icon to bring up the calculated field editor. And it looks like you're going to work on the one you already created. Well, instead you do what you do in a lot of the Epicor menus, is you click the little new button and you can create a new formula. And this time we're going to demonstrate the rounding function. And we find the rounding function under the math function, and there it is, round. So if you highlight it or double click it, I think, down in the bottom section here, it kind of shows you how to use the formula. So it shows that the formula you would type is round, parentheses, and then expression, comma, precision. And in place of expression, you put in whatever you're trying to round, and in place of precision, you put down how many places you intend to round. So for our example, we're going to round the invoice detail material unit cost, which was one of them that we displayed. So if we double click round, we'll get it there, and we can see we just need to have the expression, comma, expression, comma, parentheses, and that should give us, in the precision, 1, because normally it would be a 2-digit decimal. And we check the syntax and it's okay. So we're going to save that. We'll look at the results after we do a couple more calculated fields, because we can see all the results at once rather than switching back and forth. Notice we do have 2 now shown in our tree view. We're going to add a third calculation now. This will be to show the weekday number for a field. So that's going to be an integer, and that function is under the dates functions, and there is the weekday. So again, down here it shows you how to use the formula. And in place of expression, we want to put in which field we want to get the weekday from. And in addition to double clicking it or finding it up there, what you can do instead is actually type in the field name. And once you start typing the table name and you type the dot, it will bring up all the field. Actually, we want an invoice header. It will bring up all the field names that are in that table. So we want the invoice head, invoice date, and if you start typing I, you'll get the area that starts with invoice date. So you can select it instead of typing the whole thing, but then you got to remember, oh, I started typing it and I already had the I in there, so you don't want to leave two I's there. And so now you should have your formula as needed to display the weekday number. And we'll check our syntax, and our syntax is okay. So we'll save, and we'll go and create one more function, and then we'll check out our results. So we're going to do a new formula, weekday name we can call it, and this should display Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, etc. So we need this to be a character field, and I don't know, we'll say we have 12 characters we need to display. I'm not sure how many are in the longest day of the week, but that should accommodate it. So we're going to use the case statement, which is under the operators subfunction, and then the condition under operators. So we double click it and we can see that it gives us the format we need to use. I'm going to actually copy this to use as our condition. We're going to say if that weekday number equals 1, then the day is Sunday. If it equals 2, then the day is Monday. Else, there's only one other choice. The day is Saturday. And we'll check our syntax, and our syntax is okay. So again, we'll save here, and now since we want to see the results of these last 3 formulas that we created, we're going to go ahead and close the calculated field editor window, and then we'll go back to analyze our query and test the results. And here we can see the results, that the invoice date weekday number is 2, it's Monday, 6, it's Friday, 5, it's Thursday, 1, it's Sunday, 3, it's Tuesday, etc. And then our round material unit cost, looks like it didn't do anything, but if we sort by material unit cost and go to the top where there's some values, then we'll see our round material cost here. We want to look for here 129.23 is rounded to 129.20, and 434.62 is rounded to 434.60. So it's rounded to just one decimal place. Even though it displays 2 decimal places, we rounded it to the first decimal place. Okay, we're going to go back to the query builder and back to the display fields and back to our calculated field editor. And we're going to do a new calculated field. All right. So we're going to do year, month, and concatenate fields together in this demonstration. And this is going to be a variable character field, and we're going to say, give us 15. We only need a few less than that, but let's make sure we have enough room. Okay, so we're going to use the dates, and we're going to get our year, and we're going to get the year from the invoice date. Okay. So we need to also convert that to a string in order to be able to concatenate. So in order to convert it to a string, we use convert, and then we're going to say VARCHAR, comma, and put a parentheses on this n. So this will convert everything here to a variable character length. And we're going to add an underscore, actually we need single quotes around our underscore to make it work. And then we're going to do the similar function here, except we're going to get the month this time. So instead of the year there, we type the word month. And you'll know it's correct because it turned to blue instead of being the black like it was before. And again, we're going to add another underscore to separate the year and the month and the date. And we're going to add the date section by using that same formula again, but in place of where it says year, we're going to say day. And then we're going to check our syntax. So our formula should be correct to show our year underscore month underscore date. Okay, and now we're going to show how to add and subtract dates. The add and subtract dates function is under the date, under the functions, and then the date subfunction, and it tells you basically how to use it here. You're going to use the date add function to add days as the unit, and you want to add 21 in this case to whatever date you put in your formula. So we want the invoice head ship date. We're going to add 21 dates to that. And we'll check our syntax, and it's okay, so we'll save that. And then we'll copy this formula to use in the next calculation. We're going to do a new formula to subtract ship dates. So you can use the same function, but in order to make it a subtraction, all you have to do is put in a minus sign. In our case, we'll change the number of days too that we're going to subtract just to make it a little different. And we'll go ahead and check our syntax, which is good. So now we'll go ahead and save again. So next we have using the price per unit basis. So we're going to use a new formula, and that is going to use the operator subfunction and the condition to use the case. And these are kind of examples from an older version of Vantage that I just incorporated into Epicor 10. So these price per each codes might not exist in our training database, but we can get the idea of the formula anyway. So we're going to use the invoice detail price per each. Oops. Price per code. And say if it equals E, then we're going to multiply the invoice. And I think capitalization is very important in Epicor 10, so you want to make sure you capitalize as you need to. So if it's each, we're going to calculate the shipped quantity times the unit price. If the value is a C, which in older Vantage meant per 100, then we're going to have the shipped quantity divided by 100 times the invoice detail unit price. And if actually we can just do this in the else function. If it's not one of those, then there was another code that would be for the thousandths. So then we wanted to say it's our shipped quantity divided by 1,000 times the unit price. And we should check the syntax, and the syntax is okay. And we have to still name our field here, so and then we can save it. We have a couple formulas to show the current date and time. These are quick formulas. So as we mentioned in the beginning, there are a bunch of BAQ constants, and one of them is a constant named today. So if you want to just get today's date, that's all you need in your function, or you can use this constants dot today inside of other formulas to use that as part of your formula. So we'll check our syntax, and the syntax is okay, so we'll save it. And now we'll get the current time, and that's going to be a string, which is an n varchar. And there is another BAQ constant that is labeled current time. And so we'll check our syntax, and it's okay, and so we'll save that. So we have two more functions to show before the end of our presentation. So we have the next function is to limit your text to a certain number of characters. So it's going to be under the string functions, under the functions and string, and there is a substring function. And as it shows, you're going to put in an expression, the starting position, and the length. So the expression we want to put in is invoice head invoice comment. And we're going to take out the portion that was my partial typing. And we want to start at position 1 and allow 40 characters at the most. There probably could be up to 250 in some of the comment fields. So we'll check our syntax. Our syntax is okay. So now we have to just give it a name. And we have to make this at least 40 characters. And then we'll go ahead and save that. Okay, for our last demo of a calculated field, we're going to create a function to show the value from an array for the sales rep entry list, for example. So we'll find the formulas needed under the functions and the ranges area. So we're going to use the lookup first. And the value we're going to try and look up, we know there's a sales rep named Tyler. And then our list is going to be the invoice head sales rep list. And our separator, it shows that we need, is the tilde. And we need to have that in single quotes. And we know that just from experience that these sales rep list values are separated by tildes. So we'll check our syntax. Our syntax is okay. So then we'll save that. I did have also a similar one to show the number of entries in the sales rep list. So we'll do that formula quickly too. So that should be an integer. And we find that again under the functions, ranges, and the number entries list. And here we have the list and a separator. So the list we want to use again is the invoice head dot sales rep list. Oh, and I got two S's there, so we take one out. And the separator again is the tilde. And we'll check our syntax. And it's okay, so we'll save it. So now we can see all our calculated fields in this view on the tree side, and you can look at each one here, or you can view them all here and see whatever information you want to see there. But we're going to go ahead and close this, and we're going to analyze and test our query once again. And here we'll see our results. Before we saw up to the weekday name. Here we can see the year, month, date, where we have the year underscore month and then the date. That showed how to use those functions in concatenation. The add ship days. We should have some values in there, yep. And I didn't display the ship date, but if we would, you would see that it, actually I should just display it before we forget. Ship date, there it is. And we'll move it up to be near the add and subtract ship dates. So we have to test again to get that in there. So we'll sort by the ship date. And so now we can see 314, we added 21 days and we get 44. And we subtracted 14 and we get 228, etc. The unit price basis looks like we had, oh yeah, we had if the value is each, we multiply it by just the unit price and the selling quantity. If not, then we'd multiply it by 100 or 1,000. I didn't display the price per each code. The current date we can see is all in there, the current time. The short invoice comment, if we sort by that field, doesn't look like there's too many comments in here, just a couple, and they may not even exceed 40 characters. I don't know. Doesn't look like they do. So, or maybe they did and just got cut off there. But for the value from the array, we should see some numbers. Yep. So this says where Tyler was the sales rep. It shows which position that was in and how many were in the sales rep list, how many were in that array. We will display the sales rep list to make that more meaningful. And the price per each code to make the other formula more meaningful. Price per code. So we'll move that one up. There we go. So if we test again, price per. So it looks like we have some eaches there. Should just do a straight calculation. But we don't have any other price per codes in our training database. We can see our sales rep list here, and Tyler is not in the list, so there's no number. It's a 0 here. And this shows that there are 5 entries in the list. Lane, and then there's 4 blank entries. Here there's only 1 entry. Down here there's 1 that's Tyler in the first position, and then there's 5 altogether, Tyler, and then 4 blank entries, etc. So it looks like all our calculated fields are working. We're going to go ahead and save the query. And that concludes our demonstration for today. Thank you all for your time.